I started getting calls on the way home last night, from friends in Richland County that were mad that Larry Luick was one of the ones that defeated these kids getting a hot lunch, right? Yeah. And so we gave out his phone number yesterday. It's out there, legislators, and they said they kept calling, and all they got was the voicemail box is full. And I said, well, then text him. Do what you do. Email him. Do it, all of that. And all of them said, he hasn't got back to me. He hasn't got back to me. He hasn't got back to me. And this is going to happen all over North Dakota. These people go back and have legislative forms. Yeah. Luick's got one on Saturday at the Hankinson Community Center at 9:30. There are people anxious to talk to him. Well, we kept pounding it until finally legislation's introduced, and I'm pretty proud to say my party universally, my party now, I'm not ashamed. You sit there and say Democrats. My party supported this hot lunch in the schools. It was the Republicans that just got done killing it. But we're going to keep pounding on it, and I think some of that might be working, and that's why I asked a man that I never got to serve with, but he also served in the North Dakota Senate, Tyler Axness of Afternoons Live in Studio. Good to have you here.
Yeah, good to be back, Joel. Thanks
You're like the ultimate, you've been snooping around a little bit here.
Sources, sources close to the situation. That's maybe the difference, because how long has it been since you've been out there?
Well, a lot of my folks have died.
And mine, some are still kicking the hallways and having conversations. Yeah. But since you last left the News and Views radio audience, we're asking for a reconsideration vote on the $6 million.
And we got it.
We got a motion to reconsider, right, but then that failed. And it failed by more votes than the votes that went against. So instead of 24 no votes against the $6 million, 27. And here's the things. And yesterday during Afternoons Live on the eastern side of the radio network, there was a term that kept coming in by listeners saying, well, that coward. And they kept saying cowards because the verification vote to the processes for the reconsideration, we have no idea who the 27 no votes were to even take this back up yesterday. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have that kick in the gut if you're
Which we could have, but we didn't.
Yep, could have, yeah. It had somebody just taken one moment, said, I'm asking for a roll call vote, and get 9 of your colleagues to stand up with you. That's all it takes.
I didn't know if that was part of the strategy, if by allowing them to vote on a dark board gave them the cover of saying, yep, I'll reconsider. Mm-hmm. But if that was a strategy, it failed.
If I recall, even after that verification, then you can ask for a recorded roll call even after the fact, can't you?
No.
You can't?
Once you've got to ask for a verification vote before the vote, well, so that the board lights up.
Okay, maybe not so long since you've been out there. You got that?
You want me to play this card? How many years do you serve?
Hey, easy now. So no reconsideration. Yeah. So it was one of those. The only next option is if for somebody to have that courage that certainly lacked in the North Dakota Senate to try to amend this into a budget bill. And last night in the House in the House Education Committee, somebody did, and they did by a vote of 8-6 get that $6 million into Senate Bill 2284, which is the education funding bill. So it's still alive, but it's a long road ahead. But
it's in. They would have to pull it out of the bill now. It's in the funding for K-12 education.
Yep, Senate Bill 2284, $6 million in that budget. So now that's passed the House Education. We'll go to the Appropriations Committee in the House, where it sounds like there is some level of support. Some level, enough, I don't know. What we need is to continue to put that pressure on to these lawmakers.
So you got to keep calling.
Yeah.
And it goes to the Senate. Who would have thought, and I think you and I will agree on this, the Senate used to always be the voice of reason. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought that the Senate would become even a more radical chamber than what the House is?
I didn't. I had that comment with the source yesterday, and there's House members that have been there a long time, said the same thing. Never would have thought they saw the day that the House was going to be the reasonable chamber in North Dakota. Process, but here they are.
I started getting calls on the way home last night, from friends in Richland County that were mad that Larry Luick was one of the ones that defeated these kids getting a hot lunch, right? Yeah. And so we gave out his phone number yesterday. It's out there, legislators, and And they said they kept calling, and all they got was the voicemail box is full. And I said, well, then text him. You know, do what you do. Email him. Do it, all of that. And all of them said, he hasn't got back to me. He hasn't got back to me. He hasn't got back to me. But the sheer number of people that were reaching out to him, it's like polling data. Take that times 10 then, because a lot of other people didn't get in touch with you. And one of them said to me, Tyler, and I haven't heard passion like this in a long time, but in this is going to happen all over North Dakota. These people go back and have legislative forums. Yeah. Luick's got one on Saturday at the Hankinson Community Center at 9:30. There are people anxious to talk to him at 9:30.
There will be people at the doors at 9 o'clock. Yeah, make sure you get a good spot.
They want to visit with him. They want to know why he's doing what he's doing.
It's not often you want front row. This might be one of those events you take front row.
Now, let's also be honest about something as we talk about how to keep this alive. Thank you, by the way. Your show was just instrumental in making sure we keep this hot lunch discussion alive. But, you know, we as legislators got a per diem. Mm-hmm. They paid when lobbyists weren't paying for meals. The state paid for meals.
Yeah, you get reimbursed.
You got a per diem. Uh-huh. You got money for meals and all of that. I mean, these legislators get things that they're not willing to have others receive.
Uh-huh. And they don't see the hypocrisy in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
The SpaghettiOs bill just 2-3 years ago couldn't make it on SpaghettiOs because Ron Ness and the oil lobby can't buy me a steak dinner every night.
Yeah, because everything was shut down for COVID. And what do we hear from Keith Kampanich? Yeah. I'm sick of eating SpaghettiOs. Well, what about these kids?
Yeah.
You know?